Waste incineration. Chronic poisoning of the people. Part 3. Why are so many different types of waste earmarked for incineration? Even if we had no better use for the waste listed in the positive catalogue by BKB, other than incineration, the question arises as to why the high calorific value fraction, the good heat providers, is not incinerated separately, like plastic, tire, wood and paper waste or their own. Why are so many other poorly combustible products dumped into the bunker as well? Does this not reduce energy efficiency unnecessarily? And does it not unnecessarily boost the variety of emitted poisons as well? There are two reasons which force us to accept the co-incineration of wet and non-combustible waste. First, so that the great stoker systems in the waste incineration plant are able to work in the first place. Second, so that the 17th German law for clean air, the BIMSCH, can be complied with through the cheapest possible methods. On incineration techniques. Plastics and tire wastes cannot be incinerated on their own in a stoker-fired furnace. They melt first and then change into gas, where they begin to burn. Everyone is familiar with the phenomenon from the burning candles. The candle wax initially forms a little lake around the wick before turning into gas and then burning together with the wick. Heating plastics over a grate also produces this initial viscous molten mass. This would stick to the grate and prevent controlling the combustion process if it were not absorbed by sufficient incombustible innards in the fuel. For this reason, the contents of the yellow plastic bin in Germany always are incinerated together with the contents of the normal rubbish bin. Doing without this absorbent mass during the plastic melting process is impossible. The higher the temperature in the furnace or boiler, the more aggressive the fuel gas becomes. It attacks the plant walls corrosively. This partly can be compensated by the type of cooling air inflow used in the furnace and the routing of the exhaust furnace. Water vaporization has an additional cooling effect. Refuse-derived fuel, waste-to-energy fuel, also referred to as substitute fuel, as of late, requires a larger low calorific value fraction and then so-called cooling scrap. Its water and innards content, however, makes refuse-derived fuel a very inhomogeneous fuel. It is significantly more inhomogeneous than tobacco or coal, not to mention natural gas. The more inhomogeneous a fuel is, and the bigger the differences in bulk density and flow resistance in the furnace are, the more impossible it becomes to attain complete incineration, total oxidation. In every waste incineration plant, even the most modern one, only incomplete combustion is possible. Evidence of this is the mere fact that along with fully oxidized carbon dioxide, every waste incineration plant also emits a considerable amount of carbon monoxide. According to the 17th BIMSCH, the German law for clean air, only 50 milligrams per cubic meter are allowed. Two indisputable facts on waste incineration just cannot be overlooked. A. The merely partial combustion always takes place, and B. Thermolysis, which creates highly reactive radicals. There is a term combined, preferably with halogens, chlorines, bromines, and fluorines, to make new, often toxic compounds. Toxic substances formation is therefore never avoidable in a waste incineration plant. Halogenated organic matter in world incineration plants instead of hazard waste incineration plants. Numerous halogenated organic substances are high burners, not necessarily destroyable at temperatures from 850 to 1200 degrees Celsius. Hexachlorobenzene is mentioned above. See Australia, doesn't vaporize under 1200 degrees Celsius. For this reason, section 4 of 17th BIMSCH, the German law for clean air, demands that halogenated organic waste containing more than 1% halogen in white, calculated only as chlorine, is incinerated in a waste incineration plant at a minimum temperature of 1100 degrees Celsius. World incineration plants conditions imply that such substances are frequently only partially destroyed and are thus direct preliminaries for polychlorinated dioxins furans, PCDD, PCDF. As flue gas cleaning process in a world incineration plant, compared with the distance in a specifically charged hazard waste incineration plant, are even less able to effectively handle the huge amount of flue gases, and can say that the extended waste spectrum in a waste incineration plant introduced in 2003 is bound to enhance the unavoidable creation of further toxins. Were waste incineration plants disposal plants or synthesis plants? The book The Magic Furnace, The Church of the Origin of Atoms begin with the following words. Every breath you take contains atoms, forget in the blistering flames deep inside stars. Every flower you pick contains atoms, blasted into space by stellar explosions that blaze brighter than a billion suns. Every book you read contains atoms blown across an unimaginable gulfs of space and time by the wind between the stars. And then this book continues. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen that fills your lung each time you take a breath, all were baked in a very ovens deep within stars and blown into space when those stars grew old and perished. Every one of us is a memorial to long dead stars. Every one of us was quite literally made in heaven. That atoms which bind planet Earth, that matter cannot be destroyed, but merely combined in different ways, forming new molecules, couldn't be described more impressively and vividly. We are familiar with the imagination of things simply disappearing after combustion, but that's wrong. They just change their form and composition, just as the cigarette mentioned above became shorter without losing a single atom. The atoms are made available for chemical reactions with the atmospheric oxygen or with the chlorine from the table salt or with a great variety of other substances. All these reactions start with the lighted match. All combustion plants, waste incineration plants included, are chemical reactors, synthesizing reactors. We tend to ignore these reactions and their products, since we are normally just interested into the heat released of the purpose of driving turbines, generating process steam, heating rooms, producing products, or simply vaporizing nicotine from a cigarette. But it remains the same. Combustion plants and incineration plants, in particular, are chemical reactors where new substances are synthesized. However, the chemical syntheses in these plants do not proceed in a planned or controlled way, but very chaotically driven by the flames. Countless reaction products evolve, many of which are poisonous to plants, animals, and humans. Either they are directly toxic or they appear in toxic concentrations. They irreversibly mobilize and spread out through the nature in fine particles. Actually, nature did the opposite to enable life on the earth. It used initially overabundant CO2 for the growth of plants, of great primeval forests, and banished it below surface in the form of coal, oil, and natural gas. Excess heavy metals in dust and surface water were disposed as earth beneath Earth's surface. By burning and burning still more, we are revoking nature's life-giving wisdom and actually endangering our lives by creating a disorder of combustion products, entropy increase. By operating waste incineration plants, we are forcing evolution to go backwards. It will be better and more worthy of civilized people to follow nature example and recycle as much as material as possible. In the large-scale furnace typical of waste incineration plants, approximately 10 to 26 to 10 to 28 fuel molecules react with the equivalent amount of atmospheric, 10 to 10 high 26, 10 high 28. Even larger is the number of other reactions activated by the heat of oxidations, radical reactions and radical chain reactions as described above. These radicals must react in the blink of an eye, approach to within a micrometer of each other. The three lengths of paths of molecular motion, turbulences activated by the conflagration, bring reactants together, more or less often, in a chaotic way. In other twinkling of an eye, they have to leave through the flue gas ducts and go out the chimneys on streams up to 1 meter thick. Reaction products of combustion processes in flue gas, ash and slag were never healthy.